Great Scott! You're listening to the Growth Time Machine with Daniel Curtis. Don't forget to follow. Your future depends on it.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Growth Time Machine with me, Daniel Curtis, and today I am delighted to be joined by Chip Scholz. Welcome to the show, Chip.
Hey, Daniel, I am so glad to be here.
It's my pleasure. It's a privilege. It's great to talk to you. And I'm going to ask you a series of questions. Some of them may be ones you're expecting. A few of them may be slight curveballs. I'm not sure. But as I say to everybody...
I love the curveballs, though. The
good.
curveballs are the best ones.
That. And you never know. I may make up a couple as I go as well. So please just answer with whatever comes to your mind. And we look forward to getting to know you a bit. It's going to be great.
Thank you.
My first question, the one I ask everybody, when you were growing up, what was it you thought you would end up doing?
Oh, God. I thought I would be a professional golfer, and that's one of those little childhood. Yeah. Because I love golf, but I was never really that good. And growing up in the middle of the country in a very cold and snowy place was not conducive to golf. We couldn't play golf year round. So, that dream kind of died. I never wanted to play football. I played football, American football, but I didn't want to do that long term either. But it was probably that.
Do you still play golf?
I do.
How's that?
That's
How's the game?
That's the wonderful thing about golf is it's a lifelong thing. You can play it until you die.
I get it.
Absolutely. Are you a golfer?
No, I like watching. I like to put it on. I'm no good. I've never put me in one of those kind of putting ranges, and I quite enjoy it. But no, I'm yet to come into that stage of my life. I'm desperate to take up something. Maybe that could be golf. I always think you never know. Someone's one day is going to say, "Come and play golf," and I'll give it a go. We got some lovely courses.
I think you ought to. Yes, you have some very lovely courses. We
were
in Ireland last year and
beautiful.
Went to a couple of those beautiful places as well. So
we've asked you about the early dream, and you gave us a great example talking about sport in particular. And I think that's popular. I think sport and a sporting dream is something a lot of people say is one of the first things that comes to mind. And I absolutely get that. But what was the first real job? Now, there's normally a precursor to the real job. For me, it was a paper round. I went and delivered those papers. But it probably took me a little bit longer to get that real job. So what was it for you?
But Daniel, I want to ask you a question. So when did you decide that you wanted to be a professional singer?
Probably when I was about 4. And it sounds odd, but my grandmother, she was into Mario Lanza, the great American-Italian operatic singer. Yeah, Mario. And she was in love with the man. And from when I was a little tiny boy, I used to go to her house and put the records on. Her and my grandfather had this massive collection of pretty much everything that Mario Lanza ever did. And I would sit there as a 4-year-old who felt quite lonely in life as I grew older. And for about 10 years there, genuinely, from about 4 to about 14, I listened to those Lanza records virtually every Sunday. And I knew really early on that music was going to be something that was really powerful to me. And I loved singing. But, things got in the way. I was a nervous wreck. I had to come through a lot to put myself in that situation of vulnerability. But I think really early on, if I really root it back, music was so important to me as a child, 100%.
Yeah, and music was pretty important to me as well. But I found it fascinating to look at your bio and
Thank you.
see that you'd been a singer. Do you still sing?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I
It's one of
mean,
my favorite things.
more than just the shower, right?
100%. Yeah, singing's one of
That's
my
great.
favorite things in the world to do. And, you know, I've done some things I'm so proud of, but I just love to do it in whatever situation that is. And, you know, whether it's through church or whether it's in a concert, whatever that might be, you know, music's, yeah, belongs here, 100%, always.
And it appears that you've gotten over your stage fright as well.
Yeah. That took a long time, my friend, a long, long time, and a
Yeah.
lot of adversity, you know. Some things don't come easy. Well, the good things, perhaps, don't come easy, right?
Yeah, yeah. So you asked me the question about, what kind
Sure.
of jobs I've had and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And when you take a look, I mean, I worked from the time I was about 5 years old. I was delivering papers, and that's a job that doesn't exist anymore. But I delivered papers and collected and all that kind of stuff. I think at 8 years old, I graduated from the local paper to the Chicago Tribune, and
Wow.
I still remember in a blizzard pulling my sled with a bunch of papers on it and delivering it from there. Um, but I worked everything from, good God, I was a janitor in a elementary school, and boy, little kids are really gross. Um, but everything. I mean, I hiked cars for Hertz. I worked in a carpenter shop for a couple of summers. Any way to make a buck, and so whether it was cutting lawns or it was doing anything else, that's I think that's the beginning of work ethic. When I my dad always encouraged us, and I think that was extremely important. I don't know that it's the same way today because I don't see kids going around cutting lawns or that kind of thing. But it gave me a great leg up.
I think that ethic is dying. I'm not saying with everybody, but I certainly remember being, 10, 11 years old, and I was out there doing a couple of paper rounds a day, getting up at
Hmm.
5:30 in the morning. Imagine sending a child out now at 5:30 in the morning. I mean, you just wouldn't even consider it. It's too dangerous. And it's, yeah, that it's doesn't
I don't know
exist.
if I don't know if it's too dangerous or if we just have the thought that it's too dangerous.
That's
And
true. That's true.
yeah, yeah, and we just can imagine. Think about as a kid. I don't know if you were the same, but man, I got on my bike at 8 o'clock in the morning and I didn't see home until till dinner, and my parents weren't always wondering where I was or weren't really that concerned. I was out with friends and God, we used to drive, we used to ride our bikes up to a quarry, which was like about 7 miles away from the house, and go swimming in the quarry holes, and you know, trucks buzzing along and all that kind of stuff. I mean, we kind of had to avoid the people that were working, and yeah, I don't know that my parents ever really wanted to know that, but boy, I don't think kids have the ability to go beyond the end of their driveway these days.
No, I agree. And some of it is, genuinely that the parents, guardians being scared. And some of it is, I think, a shift in culture without
Mm,
question. But what I find through talking to people, particularly on this podcast, is normally the people who navigate towards it have this incredible early start in life that taught them pretty much this kind of work ethic, this, you work hard mentality. And it's quite interesting to see how that manifests itself in people. For me, it really was, yeah, the paper rounds. That was, it was grueling. I remember it's a snowstorm, you still expected to be out there. You were
oh,
going
that's
up
right.
hills, lugging papers. it wasn't easy, and it wasn't that hard either. But as a kid, you can think of other things to do. You can, that was probably the best bit of it. Genuinely, the life lesson in it was just you have to go do it. Off you go.
Yeah.
There's some responsibility.
Well, okay, so do you ever get bored now?
All the time, 100%. I
And
I have
and
to be.
and do you appreciate the boredom?
Oh, I'm very fidgety. I'm a very fidgety person. My wife tells me I'm hopeless at doing nothing. I can't do
Hmm.
it. My brain is like, you know, like a thousand roads all meeting at one point, and people are beeping, beep, 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 but it's chaos and carnage. And I try to make sense of things as the day goes along, and by the end of the day, maybe we've got a few people on the right road. And I feel a bit like that with life, that it's, I, I hate to feel that I'm not moving something forward or helping someone in some way. That drives me nuts. But, maybe that's got a bit to do with the ADD diagnosis that I've got. Maybe that's got something to do with the way I was brought up. I certainly think I do have that complex, and I don't know if you do, where you feel like you're meant to do something. Like, I feel this great calling to do something to help other people. And when I'm not doing that, I can be bored or displaced, slightly, out of alignment with my life. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
Well, it's the drive to be useful,
Yeah,
you know,
useful.
and at this stage of my life, and especially, I just want to be useful. And so there's a fine line between being irrelevant and being unuseful.
That's
You
true.
know, so part of it is being relevant, and it doesn't mean having the latest conversation about what's going on TikTok. I don't care about that, but it's understanding current events. It's understanding a little bit about your place in the world and what the world is all about. It's understanding human nature. One of my favorite books that I've read recently is called From Strength to Strength by Arthur C. Brooks, and he talks about the journey from fluid intelligence to crystallized intelligence, and so when you get to a certain age, and think of it this way, and you can relate with singing. Pop singers have a lifespan. They have a lifespan where they are creative and they write a bunch of songs. And Sir Paul McCartney is still writing songs at
Yes.
what he's 82 or 83.
One of my
Maybe
heroes.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe not so much anymore. But when you take a look at most pop singers or most musicians or most authors, I'm not sure J.K. Rowling is writing as often as she used to, as she did when she was really motivated. And so that's more like fluid intelligence. That's the creative part, and sometimes that runs out, and then it moves into crystallized intelligence, which is taking what we learn, taking what we know, taking what we're able to understand, and teaching and being useful. Does that make any sense to you?
It makes perfect sense. No, it does. It does. And yeah, I like that. I've not heard it put that way before. And I'm certainly going to have a look at that book. It's a good tip. So thank you for that. What did you do then? You got out of that stage of doing those jobs early on in your kind of career. What became the real passion then? The thing that, if you're looking back and we say the word work, job, employment, self-employment, your own business, what was it for you?
Well, the passion didn't really come until later. So I got out of school and I was in the middle of a recession. It was 1978, and the world was a far different place. It took me a while to get a job, and I worked for Del Monte Foods, selling beans and corn and ketchup for Del Monte, and left that. Ended up in the air freight business, and through a number of other things, ended up in the trash business in Los Angeles. And in May of '98, I got laid off. And there were a couple things I knew then. I knew that I didn't want to work for anybody else. That was almost an anti-passion, but I knew I didn't want to work for anybody else, and I always admired those people that hung their own shingle, that did their own thing. And one thing I've learned in the last almost 30 years of being in business for myself is that I'm not a really good team player. I'm not a really good corporate guy.
I get it.
I just, yeah, I don't like to suck up and play the games that people have to play to make it in corporate. And so, the thing that I found exciting, other than, the first 5 years in business were really tough. Um, and as I became more and more comfortable with the role, comfortable with what I was doing, comfortable with how to sell it, all of that kind of stuff. Um, because I was in the business I was in, I was allowed to explore and satisfy intellectual curiosity. And for me, I was scarfing up books. I mean, so up until 2012, and if you want me to talk about it, that I will. But up until 2012, um, I was reading 2 books a week. And in 2012, I had a stroke, and so I wasn't able to read after that until for about a year after that. But I still to this day read about a book a month, and you know, again, it's all your intellectual curiosity and being able to enjoy your intellectual curiosity and be able to go in different directions while doing what I grew to love.
So,
Um,
what kind of books were you picking up?
oh God, everything. I read a lot of histories. I read a lot of American history as well, but also quite a bit of World War I and World War II history.
Interesting.
Uh, yeah, there's a lot more written about World War II than there is about World War One. World War One was kind of a weird one. It was a weird one for the States because we were only in it for about a year. Looking at England and some of the European countries, I mean, it affected Europe for what, 3 or 4 years before that. Um, but also read a lot of self-help books and books on leadership and books on courage and some of my favorite books came out of that era.
I'd be interested to ask you this next question then, because it kind of leads on from there.
Mhm.
Well, I'm gonna flip one of the questions and ask you this one first of all.
Okay.
So, if you had a piece of advice that you could share, something that has become a lesson to you, it could be from a quote, it could be from one of these books. What is it that you feel like you can distill from all of this stuff that you've taken in, this knowledge? What's your message for the world?
Well, there's a couple of them. First of all, is read and read broadly. Um, there's a sad statistic that 57% of people who graduate from college never finish another book cover to cover in their entire lives.
That's sad.
Yeah, I
That's
mean
sad.
it's 43% are reading books, but that's 43% that is, they're trying to make sense of the world. And if you read broadly, the one thing that happens with a lot of executives is they read something and they think it's the best thing that they ever read, and all of a sudden they implement it. And 6 months later, they read something else and they think it's the best thing they've ever read, and they implement it. And the whole organization gets whipsaw because, yesterday we were we were reading Extreme Ownership, and then we're reading The Outward Mindset, and then we're reading this, and then we're reading that, and you know, the organization is going like this as they go. So if you read broadly, the one thing about reading broadly is that you don't get stuck in any one thing. And each of the books that I read have left me with different things. Um, the other is my favorite saying, and my favorite saying is Semper Gumby. And Semper Gumby is, do you know what Gumby is? Who Gumby is?
I do.
That's right. So there's Gumby. Semper means always in Latin, and Gumby is a flexible creature, and so it's always flexible.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah,
Interesting.
and so, you know, life isn't going to turn out the way you thought it would. And you can be walking down a path and something happens to you, and it could be good or it could be bad. And it really it whether it's good or whether it's bad, you decide that,
I believe that. I do.
you
I
know.
do believe that. So, what are you most proud of?
I'm proud of my family. I'm proud of my three daughters. I'm a girl dad and a proud girl dad. I've raised, and my wife and I have raised three pretty amazing women, and they're really great. Um, I'm proud of the things that I learn. You can see behind me that's those are all things that I've made, and I love wood turning and really enjoy it. I've been doing it for
Yeah,
about
it's
14
beautiful.
years. Yeah, yeah. I've got. I'm soon to put out October. I'll put out my sixth book, and so that has been you know, that's been revelatory, and I've enjoyed that. Um, you know, I'm just actually I'm just proud of being where I am. You know, I didn't expect to live this long.
Well, I mean, obviously, the stroke that must have, when things like that happen to you, it changes a lot of perspectives. But whilst we're
Yeah, it
talking
does.
about books, tell us where we can find these books. Tell us how people can find you.
Well, yeah. So books are on Amazon, and the audiobooks are on several audiobook platforms. You know, here's the kind of cool thing is that I did about 20 minutes on a microphone in a studio, and they were able to take that and extrapolate it and read the audiobooks in my voice.
Oh,
And
maybe that's a
it's
tip for me because I have got.
yeah,
I'm just about to do it. I'm going to try and do it, but yes, maybe that's the answer. Yeah, that could save me a lot of effort right there.
well, the first book, or the book that I just put out, was Small Decisions, Big Shifts, and it would have taken me probably a week and a half of studio time to read it. Um, I did 20 minutes in the studio, and they did it with uh, recorded voice. And if you'd like, I'll be happy to refer you to the company that I use.
Yeah, do.
They've just been great. Um,
Brilliant.
but uh, um, but anyway, yeah. The audiobooks are on several different platforms: Spotify, audiobooks.com, Kobo, BarnesandNoble.com, and my website, ScholzandAssociates.com.
Perfect. And we'll add those into the description and everything. So yes, I'm glad we came to that naturally. It's always nice.
That's right.
What
That's right.
what lesson have you learned the hard way then? What's come hard to you?
I'm wrong most of the time.
Me too. Me
Yeah,
too.
but you know, I for years I had this high need to be right, and I think of the relationships it messed up. I think of the problems in employment. I think of so many things that could have been better if I didn't have to be right. And so I read a book in 2011 called Being Wrong. It's written by Catherine Schultz, no relation at all. But Catherine, she spent her career researching being wrong, which is really kind of like a weird way to spend your career. But brilliant book, and if you ever get a chance, the TED Talk with Catherine is a great TED Talk. But you just realize that we're wrong about a lot of stuff,
Yeah, that's
and
true.
and well, and by forcing the need to be right, you alienate people. You alienate the people that are closest to you. You alienate the people that you work with, and so I think the there's several comedians that said it best. You can either be right or you can be happy.
It's a great saying. It's a great philosophy. I wholeheartedly agree. Ego can get in the way, and I think looking at one's life and being honest, we've all been that person where the need to be right or the loudest or the one pushing forward the ideas. There's a Simon Sinek. I think he wrote the book Leaders. Leaders Eat Last or something like that.
Literacy less, yeah.
Yeah, and it's obviously an interesting philosophy, and he talks about Nelson Mandela's father, and how basically they take all of the knowledge from all around them, and then the leader will make the decision based on hearing everybody out and having all of the information, or they'll wait for everyone else to be fed before they're fed, and it's a unique way to look at the world once you have got through. And I think, especially in the 20s, I was so eager to prove myself all the time. I just wanted people to respect me. I didn't want to be anything phenomenal back then. I just wanted respect. And I spent so much of my childhood lacking that I thought maybe this is my time, this is my moment. So I wholeheartedly get that. So what about if you had to go back to some point in your life and speak to your younger self somewhere along the line, and you can't say I wouldn't, where would you intervene? Where would you intercede somewhere and maybe pass on a piece of advice?
That's an interesting question, and I ask it quite a bit in my coaching and in classes that I run. If your older self could go back and tell your younger self something, what would it be? And there's two ways that I'd answer that. Is the easy answer, or I guess this tough answer, is um, that that's really a question about regret, isn't it?
Yeah,
You
wholeheartedly.
know, is there anything I regret in my life? And so I can take a look back and say there are things that I would have done differently, but I don't regret anything because that's what got me here. That's what got me to the person that I am.
And I
Um,
like that. I like that perspective. I
yeah,
think,
yeah, and we can look at all of the mistakes or the mishaps or I got married fairly young and it lasted about 10 months the first time. And my marriage this time is going on 42 years. So
beautiful.
yeah. So it's a slight course correction. So do I regret that I married my ex-wife? Yeah, I would have liked to have had different. I wouldn't have liked the heart strain, but God, think about what it taught me. Um, you know, I regret some things. My dad died at 51. My mom died at 56. I regret not spending as much time around them, but there's nothing I can do about that. So why beat myself up about that? Um, I probably would have told myself to take my academics a lot more seriously
Mm.
when I was growing up. My major was business, but actually I majored in getting out of college. Is getting a degree. Just give me the damn degree, let me walk out the door, and let me get on with life. I think I should have paid attention a lot more and done the work rather than you know had fun and worried about the social aspect of it.
You're absolutely talking to the converted with that one. I was shambolic. In school, I didn't concentrate. I was, my mind was busy elsewhere. I could do the work. I just didn't want to do it. I didn't want to give what it took. And I had to go back and do these things later in life and put those things right. But I've told this story.
Isn't that great that you did that?
I would have rather done it the first time. But yes, yes, it was painful sitting there as, in my 30s with all of the people who were resitting who just come out of school, bless them. They're 16 and I'm 36, 37 probably. And I'm like, right, okay. I'm going back and doing some of these things I should have done before. And, yes, I'm glad I did it. But I've only told this story a couple of times ever, but I remember being in religious education. It was a GCSE class and I was there, and the kid who sat next to me was the smartest one in the school. He was so smart. And he kept getting grades, 92 out of 100, that kind of thing. And he'd always boast, look at my score, what's yours? And mine would be inevitably awful, 40 or something, we had 40 or 50 between us, at least. So for two actual projects, I thought, forget it. I am going to work. And I beat him twice, where I got the highest score. He still got his 92, but I might have got a 93. And then it was point proven, job done. Let's go back to playing tennis and snooker and whatever else I could preoccupy my brain with when I left school. And, I'll always look back at that and say, Dan, you're a bit of a fool, really, Should have just done it then. But yes, going back took some resilience, and you live and you learn. But there's something interesting in it. Here's a question for you. I was talking to someone yesterday, and he told me this beautiful story about how his ancestors came from Scotland to the States and how they brought with them this chest, this wooden chest. And this wooden chest was all of the belongings they had in the world in this box. And he sent me a photo of it. Billy's a great person, and I enjoyed speaking to him. But he sent me this photo of this box, and I thought to myself, what a great question. If you had that chest, if you had a chest, what around you, what things would you put in that chest? Now, they can be more symbolic, as in, memories are nice things, and we, and you can talk about a few of those that you put in there too. But I wonder what other things. I look behind you and I see things you've made, some things that have taken a lot of time to create. Maybe for some people it's photos and different things, but what would you fill your box with? What would you put in it?
Wow. It would depend on what I was doing with that box. In other words, is that the box that I'm going to send on to the future generations?
I think it's both of those things. I think it's the box that you're going to lug with you, because this is the stuff, and I think it is the things that get passed down. Absolutely. Who looks after the box after we're gone, and how do they add to it? I think, it's a nice philosophy, this box of what do we create? What do we put in it?
So if we're being more metaphoric, I would probably put the relationships in the box, the people, because that's what makes everything worth living. It wouldn't be the things, it wouldn't be the lovely turned items that I've done, or the books, or any of that. I think that's neat, and I would love to have future generations know me because of that. But I would, the box would be particularly empty, because what they would carry with them is the relationships that I've had, the relationships with my family, And so that that's the important part to me, because when I'm dust, who's going to care?
Who,
You know,
if you had to grab something though, a physical item, what would you put in it? What would you take with you?
probably a couple bowls and the books.
Would you get one? Would you get one from behind you?
Let's see. How about this one?
That's incredible. It's beautiful. How long did that take you?
I don't know, a couple days.
It's
But
gorgeous.
yeah, this is called a Saturn bowl, and it's maple, but then you take and you dye it, and so there's about 4 or 5 colors of dye that were all sanded off and then finished, and then a black marker was used to put in the margins, and then it's
I,
finished.
I mean, genuinely, I mean it when I say it. I think it's wonderful. It's beautiful.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love it. I really do. I had so much fun making it.
So you've given us some beautiful insight into your world and how you think. The books, I think that's a wonderful lesson, a wonderful thing to pass on, and your advice and your different perspective. I wonder if there's anything else that you may feel inclined to share from the heart. It can be anything. I wonder if you've got something that feels right just about now to say.
Well, first of all, I would like to say thank you, because this has been a lot different conversation than I thought it would be.
I love
But
it. It's great.
I didn't have a lot of expectations, so you filled them all completely.
Oh,
and
bless you.
and so I do appreciate that. Second of all, I really enjoy podcasting because I get to talk to lovely people like yourself, and in
Likewise.
places that I probably wouldn't be sitting in otherwise, and so that's been such a pleasure. Um, I think I've covered a lot of stuff. There's all kinds of stories I could tell. The one thing I did want to say is I wanted to continue a thought that we were talking about the box. And years ago, I think I was about 8 or 10 years old, my father gave me a postcard that he picked up in Atlantic City, and it had a poem on it. And the poem was called The Water Cure. And I guess this kind of goes along with my thoughts about legacy and that kind of thing. Um, but the water cure basically said that whenever you're feeling really cocky, whenever you're feeling just all full of yourself, um, take a bucket of water and put your hand in it and swish around all that you want to swish, and then pull your hand out and look for the hole that's missed, that's left. And I, he gave it to me when I was 10 years old, and I don't know whether I was being cocky about playing baseball or whatever. Maybe fourth grader, I was too big for my britches or something like that. But you know, um, I didn't find that again until about 20 years ago, when I was really struggling with the business and trying to get together and trying to figure me out more than anything else. And there's a couple of things that brings up. First of all, that look, when we're gone, we're gone, and maybe there'll be some people that remember you, but I try to look at my relatives from 100 years ago, and I have no idea who they are, how they were, how they lived. They look familiar because we share some facial features and that kind of thing. Um, so bottom line is 100 years from now, I mean, I don't think there'll be much of a footprint left for me. Second of all, it is a call to be useful. It is a call to take the extra time, and when I'm doing a bowl, or when I'm writing a book, or when I'm coaching someone, it's take the time to be useful, not performative. because we can be performative all we want. We can be as loud and as bold and as full of ourselves as we possibly can be. It doesn't really matter, you know, because you'll be remembered, but perhaps not in the way that you want to be remembered. And so, being useful is so much more important than being performative. And I think that's one of the things that, especially the stroke taught me. You know, ever since the stroke, I've been living on bonus time, and so every morning I get up, I'm just tickled to death to get up. Like I said, my dad, and my mom both died very early, and I didn't give myself a lot of chance or hope that I would live past them. And I've done so marvelously, and I wouldn't have missed the last 15 years for anything. Um, but it's so much more important to be useful.
It's a lovely way to end, and I just want to say thank you. I believe that your legacy will be greater than you think it will be. I think that, the work that you're doing, the way that you speak, those words are written down and they will help people. And through your daughters, three of them,
Three of them, yes.
three of them, they are going to go on telling your stories, passing on your history, talking about, the impact that you made on their lives. And that's how it goes on. So I think that you are a very humble person, but I believe that your legacy will be greater than you think it will be. But
Well, that's very
the
kind of
people,
you to say, Daniel. Thank you.
no, and I mean that, but I also want to say genuinely that there are things that you've said to me here that I will not forget. So I appreciate your wisdom, and I will take a little piece of you forward with me as well. So never forget the impact that you can make, and never forget the impact that you have made on the world with your daughters. It's a beautiful thing. So go forth, my friend, do great work. I'm going to have a look at some of your books. I'm going to get myself an audio one because I'm a little bit better with those. And I'm going to have a listen. And I'd love to keep in touch with you if that's good. I'd love to do
I
that.
would
So
love to as well. Yes, thank you, Daniel. I would really
perfect.
appreciate that.
Well, have a wonderful rest of your day. And I will chat to you soon. Thank you so much. Lovely to talk to you.
Thank you.